From the tiniest drips trapped behind luxury finishes to hidden sprays that quietly corrode engines and eat away your resale value, each leak on this list is a silent financial trap that ordinary inspections miss. Some trigger instant disasters. Others rot your boat from the inside out long before you notice. So which hidden threat starts the countdown, and how much could it cost you before you ever see a drop? Let's begin with number 10. Number 10 is the window weep, the slow drip that starts where you least expect it. Every boat owner knows the look. A plastic-framed Portlight, sealed tight when new. But after a few seasons, the sun works its way in. Plastic expands, glass does not, and the once perfect seal splits just enough for rainwater to sneak through. The leak is almost invisible. Water runs behind the headliner, out of sight, and begins its quiet work. By the time you notice a musty smell in the cabin, mold has already taken hold. Black stains creep along the teak joinery, and the veneer near the window starts to lift. Surveyors and brokers see it all the time. One broken seal, a hidden trail of moisture, and a third of the boat's interior value is gone. Cosmetic damage may seem minor, but buyers walk away from mold and stained wood. Listings for boats with visible window leaks show price drops of 30% or more, and they linger unsold for months. The window weep rarely sinks a boat, but it can sink your investment before you ever spot the first drip. A stanchion base takes one hard yank, maybe a panicked crew member grabs the lifeline, and beneath the shiny rail the gel coat cracks. Not a dramatic split, just a hairline fracture, barely visible. But rain finds it. Water wicks along the fastener, drawn by capillary action straight into the balsa core. The deck looks perfect for months. Underfoot though, the core is soaking up every drop, spreading moisture like a disease. The first sign is subtle, a soft spot under your heel, maybe a faint creak. By then, the damage is deep. The deck starts to flex, turning springy. Surveyors call it the trampoline effect. Moisture meters beep over 18%. Delamination sets in. The only fix is brutal. Cut away the fiberglass skin, scoop out the black mushy core, and rebuild the sandwich from scratch. Yard invoices for a deck recore routinely land between $18,000 and $25,000, all because a $5 tube of cork was skipped or failed at the factory. Ignore a stanchion leak, and you are writing a check big enough to buy a car. A cockpit scupper hose is the only thing standing between your cabin and a flood. These hoses, hidden behind the galley or under the quarter berth, are out of sight and out of mind for most owners. After 15 or 20 years, the rubber turns hard as bone. The wire reinforcement pokes through and cracks open up like fault lines. A single heel in rough water or a clogged drain can push gallons of seawater through a split hose, sending it straight into the bilge. The first warning is often a soaked cabin sole or the sharp smell of salt and mildew. Electrical panels fry. The woodwork swells and blackens. Repairing the aftermath means tearing out cabinetry, replacing sodden insulation, and rewiring circuits. Bills of $5,000 to $15,000 are common, especially if the water sits overnight. All because a $50 hose, buried out of sight, quietly failed after decades of neglect. When was the last time you pulled a panel and checked yours? A slow drip at the rudder post might seem harmless. A little water, easily wiped up. But every drop that lands on the steering quadrant or a cable is an invitation for corrosion to start its work. The quadrant, usually tucked deep in a damp locker, is made of cast aluminum or bronze. Stainless cables snake around it, held in place by steel bolts and clamps. In a dark, airless space, that steady weep from the packing gland creates a perfect breeding ground for rust and pitting. The first sign is often a faint orange stain on the quadrant or a cable that feels just a bit rough when you turn the wheel. But corrosion does not stop there. Moisture seeps into cable housings, eats at the wire strands, and locks bolts in place. The quadrant itself can start to fuse to the rudder stock, its clamping bolts swollen and frozen. On many production cruisers, the steering gear is nearly impossible to reach without tearing out tanks or cabinetry. By the time the wheel goes stiff or you hear a metallic crunch under load, the damage is usually widespread. Surveyors treat steering corrosion as a safety defect, not just a maintenance issue. A full steering refit, quadrant, cables, bearings, seals often lands between $8,000 and $15,000, especially once you factor in haul-out and labor. Ignore a rudder gland drip, and you are not just risking a sticky helm. You are gambling with your ability to steer the boat at all, and the bill that comes with it is anything but invisible. A freshwater pressure leak does not announce itself with a flood. It works in silence, hidden behind a bulkhead or under the galley floor. The only clue is the pump cycling every few minutes, just a faint burp, in the night. Most owners dismiss it, blaming a sticky faucet or air in the line. But when a fitting fails on the pressure side, the system can dump 50 gallons of water into the bilge in under an hour. That water does not just sit, it seeps along wiring chases, pools beneath the cabin sole, and wicks into every piece of plywood and timber it meets. Fresh water is not just wet, it is a roti accelerator. Unlike salt, which can slow fungus, fresh water creates the perfect environment for mold and decay. Warm, stagnant water trapped under the floorboards breeds colonies of rot fungus that chew through stringers, bulkhead bases, and the bottoms of cabinets. The first sign might be a soft spot near the galley or a musty odor that will not go away. By then, the damage is already deep. Owners who catch the leak early when the pump first starts cycling might get away with a $500 hose replacement. But if the leak goes undetected, the repair list grows. Cut out and replace sole panels, rebuild stringers, remake cabinetry, and treat for mold. Yard invoices for this kind of remediation routinely land between $10,000 and $18,000. On a 20-year-old cruiser, that is enough to tip the boat from project to not economically repairable. All from a $3 elbow fitting buried behind a panel nobody opens until it is too late. A clogged anti-siphon valve does not just drip. It sets the stage for a mechanical death sentence. The raw water cooling system on most marine diesels relies on a simple principle. Once the engine stops, a small valve breaks the vacuum and prevents seawater from siphoning back into the cylinders. But salt crystals are relentless. Over a few seasons, they build up inside the tiny vent, turning it from a safety device into a silent trap. The next time you shut down the engine, the ocean finds a path. Water flows backwards, past the impeller, through the exhaust elbow, and into the cylinders. There is no warning, no alarm, no spray, just a slow, steady backflow. When you hit the starter, the pistons try to compress a cylinder full of water. Metal bends before water does. Connecting rods twist, bearings shatter, and the block can crack wide open. Mechanics call it hydrolock. Owners call it a $25,000 to $35,000 invoice because repairing a diesel with bent connecting rods means a full rebuild or outright replacement. The worst part is most people never see it coming. The engine ran fine yesterday. Today, it is a paperweight. All because a 50-cent valve clogged with salt crystals and nobody checked it at haul-out. Every yard has a story. A surveyor finds a seized engine, pulls the head, and finds a cylinder full of brackish water. The owner swears the boat never flooded, but the silent back siphon did its work, and the repair bill is more than the boat is worth. When was the last time you cleaned your anti-siphon valve? If you cannot remember, you are gambling with the heart of your boat. A loose stuffing box does not just drip, it sprays. When the shaft spins under power, even a barely perceptible gap in the packing can send a fine line of salt water arcing across the engine room. The spray pattern is easy to miss at rest, but underway it is relentless. Salt water lands on the transmission casing, the starter, and most dangerously, the steel fuel tank. Day after day, that invisible mist deposits salt crystals and moisture on bare metal. The result is a slow-motion chemical attack. First a fine dusting of white salt, then rust blooms, then deep pitting. You only discover when a surveyor taps the tank and finds a soft spot. Steel tanks are especially vulnerable. Once corrosion starts beneath a layer of salt, it works from the outside in, hidden from view. By the time a fuel leak appears or a mechanic smells diesel in the bilge, the damage is usually extensive. Replacing a rusted tank is not a simple swap. On most production cruisers, the tank is glassed in or boxed under the cockpit floor. Access means cutting through the cockpit sole or tearing out major sections of cabinetry. Yard invoices for a full tank replacement regularly exceed $10,000, and that is before you factor in lost use or the cost of cleaning up spilled fuel. Surveyors call this the salt creep pattern. The telltale sign is a trail of white crystals running down the tank or transmission case. Owners who catch it early, by running the engine with the compartment open and looking for spray, can often fix it with a few turns of a wrench and a new length of packing. Ignore it, and the salt mist will quietly total your tank, your transmission, and your budget. When was the last time you checked for spray with the shaft spinning? On the yard, the difference between a dry bilge and a salt-encrusted engine room is often 5 figures. Hot salt water does not need a flood to ruin your engine room. Sometimes it only needs a single pinhole inside the exhaust elbow. Cast iron elbows, common on most marine diesels, are eaten away from the inside by the constant rush of hot, salty vapor. When a pinhole finally forms, it does not gush. It sprays a fine, nearly invisible mist every time you start the engine. That salt-laden vapor settles on everything nearby: the starter, the alternator, every exposed wire and terminal in the blast zone. It only takes a few hours of running for the first signs to appear: a thin line of rusty soot streaking down the engine block, a faint powder of salt on the case. The real trouble begins after a few weeks. Salt, heat, and electricity are a perfect recipe for corrosion. Alternators and starters designed to last for years can seize solid in as little as 3 weeks under a steady dose of salt mist. Mechanics see it all the time. A relatively new alternator dead without warning, its bearings rusted and windings fused. Owners replace the part, but unless someone finds the source, the replacement fails just as quickly. The pattern is relentless: rust, replacement, repeat, until the telltale soot and salt trail gives the game away. By the time the problem is obvious, the damage often runs deeper than the accessories. Salt works its way into terminal blocks, wiring harnesses, and even the engine mount. The cost to strip out and replace the affected components climbs fast: $3,000 for a new alternator and starter, another $2,000 for labor, and that is before you address the root cause. Ignore it, and the salt keeps creeping, eating away at every metal surface in the compartment. In the worst cases, corrosion spreads to the transmission or the main engine block, pushing the repair bill toward $30,000, enough to write off an older boat entirely. The only early warning is that streak of rusty soot. Miss it, and you are not just losing parts. You are watching your investment dissolve, one fine spray at a time. Stray current is the silent assassin of underwater metals. It does not announce itself with a drip or a stain. Instead, a single chafed wire or a faulty inverter sends a trickle of direct current into the wet bilge. The current seeks the path of least resistance, often right through your propeller, shaft, or sail drive. The result is electrolysis. Metal atoms are stripped away, molecule by molecule, day after day. In a busy marina where dozens of boats share the same ground, one boat's wiring mistake can doom every propeller in a row. The damage is nearly invisible until haul out. A healthy bronze propeller is golden and solid. A victim of stray current turns pink, brittle, and pitted. Aluminum sail drives fare even worse, losing up to 5 millimeters of metal thickness in a single season. The cost is staggering. A new bronze propeller runs about $3,000. A replacement sail drive can top $20,000, not including haul-out and labor. In Florida, a single faulty inverter once destroyed 10 propellers in 2 days before anyone traced the source. By the time surveyors spot the pink metal, the damage is already done. Electrolysis does not respect boundaries. It can eat through through-hull fittings, rudder stocks, and even the shaft itself, leaving you with a propeller that spins but has no strength. The only early warning is a clamp meter. Professional electricians set the threshold. Less than 50 milliamps of leakage is acceptable. Anything higher, and you are losing metal. A quick test at the dock, clamp the ammeter around your shore power ground, can reveal a ticking time bomb. If you see more than 50 milliamps, disconnect and call a professional. The difference between catching a stray current leak early and ignoring it is the difference between a quick wiring fix and a $20,000 insurance claim. Electricity always finds a path to ground. Do not let your $3,000 propeller be the ground. Chain plates are the Achilles heel of modern deck construction. Every rigging load passes through those stainless steel straps bolted through the deck and anchored to bulkheads deep inside the boat. When the bedding around a chain plate fails, even by a hair's width, rainwater begins its silent invasion. The water does not pool on the surface. It wicks straight down the fastener holes, following gravity and capillary action into the plywood or balsa core and into the bulkhead tabbing. You will not see a drop on the cabin sole. You will not hear a drip. But inside the wall, the ROT starts to spread, eating the structure that holds up the mast. The first sign is rarely dramatic. Maybe a faint brown stain creeps from the edge of the chain plate cover. Maybe the wallpaper near the bulkhead starts to bubble, or a musty odor lingers in the lockers. By the time a moisture meter pressed against the tabbing reads over 18%, the damage is already advanced. Surveyors know the number by heart. Anything above 18% moisture is a red flag for core rot and structural compromise. At this stage, the plywood or balsa has turned black and spongy. The fiberglass tabbing, once rock solid, peels away in strips. Tap the area with a mallet and the sound is dull, lifeless, a sure sign the core has lost its strength. The consequences are brutal. If the mast shifts or the bulkhead flexes, the entire interior has to be gutted. Every piece of cabinetry, every panel, and every inch of liner must come out to access and repair the rot. Yard quotes for this job routinely exceed $18,000, and it is not unusual for the final tally to cross $25,000. Insurers call this a constructive total loss when the repair costs more than the boat is worth. One owner ignored a faint stain for a single season. 10 months later, a surveyor's moisture meter screamed over 22%, and the insurance company stamped the file, constructive total loss, no payout, salvage title only. Chain plate leaks do not just threaten your rig, they can quietly end the economic life of your boat. The only defense is vigilance. Pull the boot, test the tabbing, and never trust a dry-looking chain plate. The difference between a $10 tube of bedding compound and a 5-figure demolition bill is just a season of unnoticed rain. Across all 10 hidden leaks, one truth stands out. Destruction rarely announces itself. The real threat isn't dramatic flooding. It is slow, silent damage that eats away your investment from within. For boat owners, vigilance is wealth protection. The most expensive leaks are invisible until it's too late. Find them before your surveyor and before your wallet does. Have you uncovered a hidden leak disaster? Share your story below.